Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy, episode 80. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and this is a Hey Andrea episode. Okay, why did I sound like a game show announcer just then? This is a Hey Andrea episode. That's probably more accurate. What is a Hey Andrea episode? Well, we haven't really had one of these in a while, so let me tell you. This is where someone I know asks me a question about podcasting that I would love to answer for all of you, because if that person is asking it to me, probably other people are having that question as well. And so this question comes to us from a conversation that I was having with Kim Wensel from Pattern of Purpose podcast. And I was actually interviewing Kim for The Creative Imposter and Podcast Envy. Those episodes are not out yet, but they are coming soon in 2021. And she turned it around and started asking me questions about podcasting. And one of the questions that she had was, dun, 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 what do you think about solo episodes? Do I really have to do them? And of course, no, you don't have to do anything, technically. But what I said to her was that I am a huge fan of solo episodes for podcasters, especially podcasters who are using their show to communicate their brand, to support their coaching or consulting business, to develop their own thought leadership and messaging, and to connect with potential clients and customers in their niche. Solo episodes are like the best way to speak directly to your audience and make that intimate connection. In fact, when I first started podcasting, I had no intention of doing solo episodes ever. I also did not really have a business plan behind it. I wasn't yet your podcast boss. I thought I was going to do all interviews, because who would want to listen to me talk for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes anyways? But what I found was that producing interview episodes took a lot of time. And if I wanted to have a weekly show, which at that time I thought I did, then I needed to do something differently. And so the solo episodes were born as a way to put content out more expediently. And what I heard back from the small amount of listeners that I had in those very early days was that though they really loved my interviews, they actually loved the solo episodes even more, because they felt like they were more intimate. Like they really got to know my personality, and they felt like I was speaking directly to them. What my numbers showed is that the interviews were much more popular, but really, this is why we can't just rely on stats and numbers and downloads to tell the complete story of our show and our success, because obviously interviews are going to have higher download numbers because you have two people that are promoting the show, or you have the name recognition of that other person, or whatever. There's a number of reasons why that is. But back to, what do I think about solo episodes? And Kim, do you need to do solo episodes? And I was like pushing for you to keep doing your solo episodes. Having listened to your podcast, I love listening to your solo episodes. I think they're great. I think they're insightful. I learned so much for them. I feel like I'm getting so much value for free from you. And there are things I can directly apply into my own business practices. However, I changed my mind. No, you don't need to do solo episodes. Stop doing them. You don't like doing them. You don't enjoy them. You are doing them because you feel like you should. And if you go back and listen to the Podcast Envy episode previous to this one, episode 79, with Kelly Covert from In Her Voice, you will hear us talking about developing kinder habits, and the should habits, even if they are technically, objectively good habits, the should habits are not the kind habits. And so, you know what? No. How many times do I have to say it? No, Kip, stop doing solo episodes. If you don't like doing them, if they don't bring you to the place that you want to feel with your show, then don't do them. And specifically, I'm saying don't do them because I was listening to subsequent episodes of your show after our conversation, and I realized that you are kind of already doing that in the intros for your interview episodes. So your interview intros are not just talking about the guest. You typically are also telling a personal story from your own life and or business in order to frame the conversation that you are about to share in the interview. So the whole reason I love the solo episodes is because they're an opportunity to speak directly to your listener and for your listener to really get to know you, to get to that know, like, trust place, if you want to think marketing speak. You're already doing that in your intros. So you don't actually technically need the solo episodes. So that's the bottom line to my answer. Stop doing them. See how it feels. Keep doing your intros the way you're doing your intros and see if anything changes for you. And hey, if you get inspired to do a solo episode every once in a while, like every 3 months or every 4 months or every blue moon, I don't know what it is, then there's nothing that says that you can't throw a solo episode in there, but don't do it just because you feel like you should be doing it. Also, I think the answer to this question really depends not only on what you feel like doing or what you want to do, but also on the particular podcaster. There's the question of what do you enjoy doing? And then there's the question of what are you good at? And then there's the question of what serves your intention with your show. So if the point of your show is connecting with guests and having these conversations, then solo episodes don't support that intention at all. I do want to point out that as a listener, because every time somebody asks me a question about podcasting, I can always answer from multiple perspectives, right? From the producing and strategy perspective, and then also from the perspective of a listener, because if I am anything before I am a podcast producer and strategist, I am also an avid podcast fan. Side note, I saw recently that a super podcast listener is somebody who listens to 5 or more hours of podcasts per week. And I laughed because I listen to 5 or more hours of podcasts per day easily on most days. Anywho, some of the shows that I listen to, I strongly prefer their solo episodes. And in some cases, don't even listen to their interviews. My friend Tina Conroy is an example. Tina Conroy is the producer and host of the Intuitive Woman podcast. Tina has been featured on The Creative Imposter, and we will link to both her show and her episodes with me in the show notes for this episode. And Tina, I'm sorry if you're listening to this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with your interview episodes. They're fine. They're great. They're wonderful. But the real reason I tune into your show is for your solos, for especially your meditations. There have been many times this year where I could not have gone to sleep without them. Your meditations, your energy healing sessions, and also the episodes in which you talk about a particular healing modality. That is what I love about your show. And so sometimes I listen to the interviews, sometimes I skip them, but I always listen to your solos. Another example is Joan Sotkin of The Prosperity Show. Joan has also been on my podcast, and I know that Joan loves interviews because she's a connector and she loves meeting new people online who she's never spoken to before in her life. But what I love Joan for are her stories and the way that she connects different ideas in her mind. I live for Joan's solos. And then there are some shows as a listener that I don't particularly care for their solo episodes. The Good Life Project with Jonathan Fields is a prime example, which in full disclosure, I don't listen to Jonathan's show at all anymore because ever since he moved over to the Wondery Network a few years ago, the amount of ads on that show are out of control and they really annoy me and it really takes away from my experience. And also, this is just my gut speculation. I have no intel or evidence to support this theory, but I feel like the network started putting guests on his show or pitching guests for his show that he doesn't necessarily even personally connect with due to the opportunity for visibility, promotion, name recognition, whatever it is. So I'm sorry, Jonathan, I doubt you are listening to Podcast Envy, but if you are, these are huge barriers to me for continuing to listen to your show. But I used to love Jonathan's interview episodes so much. He was one of my favorite interviewers when I first started listening to podcasts, and I learned so much about doing good interviews by really studying his approach. However, when he was doing these like solo episodes, they were a little shorter. Maybe they were called rants. I can't really remember, but I did not love them, and I would generally skip them. I miss the old days of podcasting. But that's another topic for another day. Now, let's say, actually, despite all of what I just said, you do want to do more solos, or at least have them in the mix, but you are struggling with how to think about them or coming up with ideas for them, here are a few Podcast Envy quick tips. Number one, when you set out to record a solo episode, imagine that you are speaking directly to one person, a real person, not a mystery listener avatar named Sue. Right now, Kim Wensel, I'm talking to you. Number two, find your recording style. So I don't mean like your speaking style, whether you're going to be funny, whether you're going to be ranty, whether you're going to be wise and educational, whether you're going to be a storyteller. I mean, what is going to support you in making the recording process and hence the editing process also easier. So for example, are you scripting your solo episodes and writing them all out? Are you using bullet points or note cards or Post-it notes to put the prime topics and points that you want to hit, but maybe you're not scripting out every single word? Or are you speaking totally off the cuff? Are you an improviser? In which case, you or your editor may have more work to do on the back end, just depending. Find the style that works for you, and maybe it's a mix. I have a mix. Sometimes if I have a lot of specific examples or details or things that I want to get right, I will script it mostly out and then make conversational tweaks as I go. If something is written and doesn't feel right when I say it, I might say it over again. In this case, I put some notes that I wanted to hit and some examples, but I didn't script out every word. And then in some cases, I'm just going to record off the cuff. Those are less common because then I know I'm going to have more editing work to do on the back end, and I don't always want to do that. So find your recording style. Number three, keep it short. Number four, have something to respond to. So if you're having trouble coming up with a topic or finding what you want to talk about, having something to respond to can be totally helpful. In this case, I am responding to a question that came up in my interview with you, Kim. In another recent episode of Podcast Envy, I had a rant, which was a response to a feeling that bubbled up inside of me while listening to a different show's episode that made me want to scream and pull my hair out. You could be responding to a piece of listener feedback or a review that you received. You could be responding to something that you read or something somebody said to you or a crazy dream that you had. Find something that you can respond to, and you'll probably find that thing when you are not in a position to quickly write it down or record something in that moment. So make a note wherever you need to make a note that this is a thing you want to record an episode about. And tip number 5, don't overthink it. Sometimes I feel like I need to give a dissertation on the topic of recording solo podcast episodes, and I need to reference different things and give all these different links and blah, blah, blah. No, just talk. Turn on the microphone and talk. And this is, I guess, number 6. I wanted it to be 5, but there was another thing I wanted to say, which is to mix it up. Try different types of solo episodes. So like, for example, I'm calling this a Hey Andrea episode. To me, a Hey Andrea episode, when I'm thinking of that in my mind, I'm answering somebody's question about podcasting. I also have ranty episodes, which is that one that I was talking about, which has Gloria Steinem in the title. I also have personal storytelling episodes where I'm talking about something that is personal to me. Those happen more on The Creative Imposter than they happen on Podcast Envy. But what are you doing? Who are you in that moment as you're talking to that one listener that you're talking to? Are you teaching that person something? Are you ranting about something with them? Are you reviewing something for them? Are you promoting something to them? Are you asking them a question? What is it primarily that you are communicating, and how are you communicating in that moment? I think that's it. I also recorded another episode of Podcast Envy very early on about solo episodes. So this is not the first time this question has come up. And I didn't realize until right when I sat down to record this that I had actually already made this episode. And this was back in 2018, episode number 18, solo shows. What would I talk about anyway? So full disclosure, I did not go back and listen to it. I just saw it on my list of shows. And I have no idea what I said in that episode. So I am curious if you want to go back and listen to episode 18. We'll link that in the show notes as well. I am curious what I said and whether it matches up with what I said today. Has my opinion changed in 2 years? Has my approach changed? No idea. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you. Really, I'm curious. Solo episodes, love them or hate them as a podcaster or as a podcast listener? And how do you think about creating your solo episodes? Hit me up with some voice feedback, like record a voice memo on your phone or an MP3, or even if you want to be fancy and send me a wave, I don't know. Or if you want to be not fancy and just whip out a quick text email, that's fine too. Or you could double duty it and respond inside of a review for this episode at ratethispodcast.com/envy, and then send me a screenshot so I don't miss the review and feedback, and I'll share it on a future episode. So whether it's a screenshot of a review or it's a text-based email or it's an audio recording, you can send that to Andrea@thecreativeimposter.com. And oh, hey, if you love getting advice like this, did you notice that we didn't have a podcast angel segment? Well, here it is right at the end of the episode. Podcast angels, of course, are those products, services, opportunities that will help you along your podcasting journey. I hate that. Will help you create an amazing podcasting experience for you, your audience, and your guests. And my angel of the year, angel of the end of the year, angel for right now, is the Podcast Envy Pro Pod. This is a membership program that I am offering to you in 2021, where you can get advice like this directly from me and from a cohort of other amazing creative thinkers who are professionals who podcast. We'll meet once a month over Zoom to deep dive into somebody's show. Deep dive. There's another phrase I hate. We'll meet once a month over Zoom to peel back the layers of somebody's show onion. Nope, that doesn't work either. We will meet once a month on Zoom to spotlight one amazing podcaster. And all of us will come up with some creative solutions and ideas for that podcaster's show, whatever question that podcaster is pondering in that moment. That's monthly. You'll get a one-on-one strategy session with me every 6 months. And in the in-between times, we'll be having conversation in our very own intimate, mighty network online. So whether your question is a simple one like this one, or whether it is a much deeper question about the craft and or culture of podcasting in general, or your show, or how it fits into that ecosystem, we are here for you. ProPod membership is $99 per month, or if you want to go for it and sign up for the whole year at once, it's just $79 per month paid up front, so you get 2 months free. The application to join can be found at thecreativeimpostor.com/podcastenvypro, linked of course for you in the show notes. And if you are curious about the ProPod, but you're not 100% sold on it, you can schedule a tea date with me totally free for 20 minutes at thecreativeimpostor.com/T420, TEA 4 FOR 2020. And I promise you, that conversation is not a sales call. That conversation is not me trying to push you into the ProPod. I really only want the people whom it's going to be an amazing fit for and who will be an amazing fit for the pod. That's who I want. And so it'll just be a conversation to see if it's something that works for you. No pressure. But I'd love to talk to you more about where you are in your podcasting experience and how we can be of more support to you. Okay, I just realized putting the podcast angel at the end of the episode doesn't work at all because there's music that has to fade out and then there's music that fades in from the outro. So I have to talk just to fill the space to make the music cues work. So thank you so much for listening to Podcast Envy. This has been a Hey Andrea episode. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and I would love to connect with you now or in the new year, or preferably both. Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me.
The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as lemon cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz. And hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.